Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. It's time for episode 9 of Covertape Chaos. Firstly, you may have noticed that I'm using new background music in this episode. This is because Rune Bertels, who made the swing band arrangement of the Monty on the Run theme, apparently thought I was getting rich off the back of their music, so I have removed monetization from all the previous episodes and will be using a royalty-free tune from Commodore going forward. So with that out of the way, let's get on with taking a look at what goodies this tape has to offer. First up is Samsara, a side-scrolling platform shooter published by Hewson. It's pretty tough, but it's also highly enjoyable with some well-drawn graphics, nice animation and some quality sound design. I especially like the noise that the missile makes when you fire it. Here's a little tip for anyone thinking about trying this game out. Make sure you press F5 at the start of the game to activate your super lasers, as this will make your life a lot easier, at least for a while. By holding down the fire button until a meter fills up, you can unleash hot laser death upon the tougher enemies throughout the levels. Likewise, by pressing the spacebar you can prime a missile, which will then be launched the next time you press fire. You should use your missiles and lasers sparingly though, because you only get a limited number of each. If you can shoot the bigger enemies fairly easily with your standard gun, without taking damage, then you should just go with that option. Save your lasers for enemies that are in awkward places. The lasers bounce around corners, and your missiles for stuff that you'll need to take down quickly before they snuff you out. So overall then, I like Samsara quite a bit. It's just tricky to get very far without cheating. It's not in the same league as Turrican from a design or control perspective, but still worth spending some time with. Next up we have a playable demo of Hero Quest, which is based on the D&D style board game that was made by Games Workshop in conjunction with MB, who are also responsible for stuff like Warhammer and Space Hulk. I was quite expecting this to be a very complicated game to play, but on the contrary, after a quick read of the basic controls and what you're supposed to do, I actually found it very easy to get into and intuitive. The player or players, Hero Quest is a lot more fun if you can find 3 friends to play it with, finds himself deep within a dungeon and the objective is to find the way out. Simple, except the dungeon is quite a maze and there are enemies such as orcs that could end your life prematurely if you're not careful. There are 4 character classes which are all pretty standard for this type of game: the Barbarian, the Wizard, the Elf and the Dwarf. The Wizard and the Elf each get to choose a set of 3 magic spells at the start of the game, with the Wizard getting to choose first as his magical ability is stronger. You then take it in turns exploring the many corridors and rooms trying to find the exit. Once per turn you can also check for trapdoors or treasure. Should you encounter an orc, you can attack it if you are 1 space away from it, though I didn't have much luck getting any blows to land in the demo, so maybe they are best avoided until you can find a half decent weapon. I can quite easily see myself playing something like this for a long time, especially with other people. It's surprisingly addictive and transfers over to the C64 very well. I would go hunting for a copy of the physical board game, but I don't think Games Workshop make it anymore, so it's probably very expensive nowadays. So perhaps the C64 version is a decent alternative. My only minor gripe is that there is no sound in the game whatsoever, so you would probably want to put some music on while you play. Maybe something suitably fantastical like the Lord of the Rings movie soundtrack, or alternatively some pop music from around the time this magazine was published. After that is another full game, a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up by the name of Bulldog. I really enjoyed this, and it reminded me of the classic arcade game Star Force a little bit, particularly in the rather blocky modular nature of the backgrounds. After failing to get past the first stage on my first attempt, I did much better the next time, getting all the way to stage 7. At the end of each stage is a boss, and none of these were particularly tricky to take down, just avoid their fire and take down each segment. The levels themselves were actually more challenging, especially when you get to around level 5 and impassable walls are introduced. You actually have to make use of a collectible that reverses the direction of the level for a few seconds, so that you can navigate the maze of walls unscathed. Clever stuff. Speaking of the collectibles, Bulldog features quite a nice range of them, including those that increase your speed, firepower and give you turbo fire. But there are also plenty of collectibles that can really screw you over. Backwards S's that will slow you down, a D that will rob you of all your power-ups you've collected, what an arsehole, and one that limits your control to going left and right for a time. I like this old-fashioned style of vertical shooter much more than the bullet hell genre that has taken root these days. Probably because my reaction times can actually cope with this slower paced design, whereas my poor brain struggles to even comprehend what's going on in the average cave shooter, let alone do well at one of them. Another solid entry to what is stacking up to be an excellent cover tape. The final playable demo on this tape is something I'm already quite familiar with, due to playing the Amiga version quite a bit and then the PlayStation sequel/remake several years later. It's called Firepower and sees you taking control of a little tank and laying waste to an enemy base, all the while protecting your own. The game is much more fun when played with another human being, but is still pretty enjoyable when played against the computer as well. The idea is to choose one of 3 different types of tank, then make your way into enemy territory and gradually chip away at their defences until you gain access to their flag, whereupon you can then capture it and take it back to your base for the victory. In this demo I did keep blowing up for seemingly no reason at all, though I suspect that there were landmines that I couldn't see. Still, this is a little unfair. There should at least be some clue that there may be landmines around, and from what I recall of the other versions there was in those. In the follow-up called Return Fire you could opt to play as the helicopter instead, or an APC. The APC had no weaponry but was the only thing that could actually pick up the flag, so it was a race to see who could clear a path to the other player's flag first with the tanks and the helicopters, then drive hell for leather and collect it before the other player noticed and destroyed them. The C64 version seems to limit you to 5 lives, and that may be the same for the Amiga version of Firepower as well, I don't remember. In Return Fire though, I'm fairly certain you had infinite lives and the game continued until a flag was seized. That brings us to the end of Power Pack 9, and I think it was a very good one. In particular, I would like to spend some more time playing the full version of Hero Quest. There will be a bit of a break until I take a look at Power Pack 10, because there will be another episode of the Rare Replay Compilation Station series in a fortnight. Look for the next cover type chaos in about a month. In the meantime, take care.